Hello everybody, this is Nancy from the summer weekday batch, and this is going to be my final video for this one, part 2. I did a video for part 1, then I did part 3, and then I changed it and did part 2 third. Why? Because that is how Jay presented it to us in the lecture. We did the changing iterations within the data table first, then we did within the script first, then we did data tables second, then we did Excel third. And so even though data tables came second on our homework, I wanted to do the Excel second because I was getting confused by keeping it out of order, so or vice versa. Yeah, the data tables were third, I did them second, and then I saved the Excel for third. And forgive me if I'm getting a little punch drunk, but oh my gosh, am I so tired after doing this, because it's been a marathon the last few days. And you know, between, I'm sure you guys know as well as I do, between life, the universe, and everything, and doing this, there's not a lot of spare time for binge watching anything on Netflix. Alright, so once again I used a snowball calculator, different one this time. Let's see, I think it's called You Det It. Where did you go? There we go. This is the website that I use. Everything that I used this time was the snowball things, because they're actually very straightforward and the websites are very simple, so that made it just super simple for me. Alright, let's see what we have here. Starting at the top, I think the reason everybody likes these videos is because when Jay is teaching, he's giving, first of all, he's giving the theory, and he separates it out and he just shows you, this is a loop. You do this, you do this, you do this. And then later he shows you how you do it with a particular website. And so you got to take that information that's strung out over, 2 4-hour videos and find the meat that you need. And so I'm kind of doing that here and then cutting to the chase, so you can see top to bottom what I did and what you need to do, because it's very formulaic. And once you realize that, hey, on Wednesday at 8 p.m. he talked about the row counts, but on Tuesday at 4 p.m. he talked about making sure you dim this and that and the other, you have to really get this in your brain. And that's why he's having us do it again and again and again, because by the time I got to the third task on here and the third scripting, I was just pulling stuff in right and left like a champion. And then of course you change it up because you're using Excel instead of a data table, but everything has rules. So let us get started. I'm going to go from top to bottom, show you what I did. As with everything, we start with option explicit and system close process by name in order to close any open browser, and system util.run to open Internet Explorer browser and then the website. Okay, anytime you are working with variables, you have to declare them. You're not forced to declare them unless you're using option explicit. You're not forced to declare variables, but it's a good habit to do. So what variables do we have? We have all these variables here for the data that's going to go into our script, and then we have things like the expected amount of the data that we captured versus the actual amount. Then we have our iteration, which is I, and we named our row count, which is row count. And then we have to name our sheet, my sheet, and our Excel. Alright, so when we are doing things with Excel, the first thing that we have to do is create a connection between Excel and UFT. And that is done with a very simple formula. Excel create object, Excel application. We start with creating this connection, create object, Excel.application. This stays the same all the time. Then we either have to create a workbook or we have to open a workbook. And I created a workbook before I started on this, so I would already have it available, and I named it Excel Data Table Test. And so whenever I need to get it, I don't have to create it, I just have to open it, and that's my Excel.workbox.open, and then the path. Remember that the way to get the path if you have Windows 7 or later, which is what I have, I think most of us have, is to hold down the Shift key. While you're holding on down the Shift key, you right-click on your item in your file, and then you choose Copy as Path. And when you do that, you will be able to simply paste it into here, and that is what I did. Please make sure that you put that within quotation marks. Now, the other thing you want to be sure to do is make sure that your application is visible. In other words, you want to be able to see that Excel sheet, and it will be running in the background if you put false, but you won't be able to see it. We want to be able to see it, so you put true. And then we are going to name the sheet that we are working on. And I renamed my sheet Test Data, because when you start, you have like several sheets, and I chose to rename mine Test Data. And there we have Test Data in quotation marks inside parentheses. So you're in Excel, you have one open workbook. In that open workbook there are multiple sheets, and I want the one that says Test Data. Now, remember that one of our variables is row count. And what that means is when we tell Excel to read the data for us, we say only read the information that I need, which is the rows that have stuff in it. So if it doesn't have stuff in it, ignore this, because otherwise it will take forever and a day for it to run through everything. So I keep opening the wrong thing here. So we do row count, my sheet used range.rows.count. And this is a formula also. You just have to learn that one so you can do it correctly. Then we're starting to get to the meat of it. Set my browser, because we don't want to have to type browser, mid-class browser, creation time title, page, mid-class page, creation time title on every single line of our script when we are capturing items and objects by, because we're lazy. So we set my browser. Make sure you have this declared in memory, dimmed, and that way when you're down here typing, all you have to do is type in my browser. And you're going to be using iterations, so you need to have for statement. But in my particular case, with this particular website, I wanted to go ahead and add rows one time before the repetition started, and that is why I have it above where my loop starts. I do not want these included in the loop. I want that click to happen 2 times only, and then I can start filling in the information. That is why that is here and not down here. So we start our loop, said for I equals 2. The reason we are choosing 2 is because in Excel, our data starts here that we want. 1 is our column names. Remember, in data tables, we're able to take that A, B, C, D, double click on it and rename it so that we can start on row 1. We cannot do that in Excel. Our first line is going to be our column names, so we have to start it at 2. That's one of the things that can trip you up. And once again, I accidentally opened the wrong thing. Then I start writing in my variables, and it's quite simple. I have a total budget, I have loan names, I have minimum payments, and I have balance, and I have interest rate. And I had that for 3 different sets of data, because if you look on the page, 1, 2, 3. I said, you know, having 3 is going to give me plenty of data for my program to crunch. When we are working straight up with variables, we would do total budget equals, and then we would have something like $1,000, and that's all we would have, or whatever, $1,000. But here we don't want to put in our own values inside the script. We want to pull information from the Excel sheet. And the way you can do that is you can tell it, I need the information for my total budget. I need the information from this particular cell, and each of these little boxes in Excel is a cell. So I need this information. I need total budget. Now if I just wanted it to run just that one line of total budget and that number were to never change, then I would identify the cell by going row number, column number. So my row number is 2 and my column number is A. So you would see 2A, dot value, and this would not change. This formula is my sheet dot cells, and then inside parentheses your two values dot value. And then if you're not, you have your number, it does not have to be in parentheses, but if you're going to use the letter of the column, then you do have to have that in parentheses. The issue is we are not just pulling that first, don't worry about me losing anything because I've already saved it and turned it in. I'm done with it, so I can mess with this as much as I want. We're not just wanting to get the very first total budget. We want to get it all through the rows. We want this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, all the way down. So what do we tell it? Instead of saying I want row 2, I want row 3, and I want row 4, we are going to tell it I want the first iteration, then the second iteration, then the third iteration, and then the fourth. And we're going to, and by doing that, we simply replace the number with the I from our loop statement. And that will make sure that it goes through each row each time. So total budget, loan name, balance, minimum pay, rate 1. Now, there we go. That's all right here on the first line. Okay, then it's going to go total budget, loan name, balance, minimum payment, rate 1, and all the stuff all the way through line by line by line. So all this is going to be, actually this is all line 1, right? Because I have a lot of information here. I made, I see, because I had 3 different iterations, here's, I had 3 different sets of data, let me say that. I have one set of data here, one set of data here, one set of data here. So it's got to go through all that, and then it's going to go around again, line 2. And then it's going to go again, line 3. So as you see, it's kind of a hot mess. I had a lot of information in here. But I set all my variables, and you do it the exact same way. I used a lot of cut and paste. I would just go, or copy rather, copy, and then I paste it to the next line, and then I just change A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. So, you know, made my life easier. And then obviously before I did any of that, I created a script using just regular variables or just hard numbers here just to see if it would run by using our typical method of object spy. You should know that by now, so I'm not going to go into it real detail. What I would like to remind everybody is please make sure that the values that you put in here are unique. In other words, you might have the name that says total underscore budget, and then you'll have outer HTML that also says total underscore budget. Don't use both of those in here because the value is exactly the same, so it's not going to help you to uniquely identify that item. So make sure that your values are different. They are unique. And then, you know, you're just going to do dot set or dot select or dot click, whatever the appropriate function is, and then you're going to put in your variable, which here was total budget, and then here was loan name 1, and here was balance 1, all the way down the line. All right, very straightforward until then, and then the next tricky stuff is get RO property and doing your exist. I had a heck of a time with figuring out what I was supposed to do with the get RO property because we are having to take something that is expected and compare it to something that is actual. And we have to do that by plugging in all of these numbers in our sheet here, clicking go, and getting our result. And we have to do that for every single line. And it is a pain in the tushy, but I did it. So I went to the website here. I'm going to show you like real quick because it really is a pain in the tushy. And I put my balance here, minimum payment here, interest rate, dun dun dun, and then how much I could pay from line 1. I clicked go, and then I took the result that I got and I manually typed it in here. That was the hardest thing that I had to realize that I had to do. You have to manually put your information in, click go, and pull out those results so you can put them down as expected results. Once you have that, that's like the hardest, data entry thing that you have to do. Then you have to use that to get the RO property. On this one, let me go ahead and run this real quick. Oops, I messed it up. Okay, I'm not going to run it real quick. I forgot to put the comma back in. See, one little thing will mess you up. Let's try it again. Line 25, total budget. Oh, I put the comma in the wrong place, that's why. See? As I said, you can tell I'm tired and a little bit loopy. Can we please get past line 25? Thank you very much. And I'm actually going to stop the test here because I don't need to run through it. I just need to show you something. All right, so first time around, I manually plugged in all this information in order to get the number that I'm going to be using, which was, I think, the total payment, total principal and interest. This was the element that I was going to use to get the RO property for, excuse me. So we have to object spy it in order to pull it out here. So I did object spy. Move this out of the way. And in order to be able to move around like you're in a normal desktop while you have this object spy going, you have to hold down your control key. I'll let up on the control key, and then I captured that number because that number is going to change. That is a dynamic number that is going to change because it is the result of calculations for the information that I put in. So we have to do two things here. The reason I want to show you is to remind you what I had to remind myself. The same thing, you're going to do actual 1, that's my actual payment. I named it that, and then I put it up here. I named it that because it's a lot easier to type actual 1 down here than this mess again, right? So we caught our information. And this one I had to find out what index it was because my information wasn't very good to identify it because I didn't have a title, I didn't have a name, I didn't have enough information to uniquely identify that number, but I really, really wanted to use it. Ultimately, I fiddled around and found out that its index value was 5. And then, notice I captured this information in Object Spy after I had run part of the script and after I had a number generated here. Why? Because I need to find out which one of these properties holds that value. Because it's when Jay was doing the example on the I think cars.com website, he said it was inside inner text. So as you see here, inner text does hold this value, but that's not always true. I had my other script where I had to do that, it actually was inside the value. It had a value property. So it's not automatically going to be inner text. In this case it is inner text, but it is not always automatically going to be inner text. So run that script, get it with numbers in it, and then find out where that number is and you'll know which one to use. So here we use inner text. Okay, so the tricky thing is that you have to make sure on your Excel sheet that you have a column for actual and expected and pass fail. And so I manually put these numbers in here. The actual is going to get written from the script into here by UFT after I tell it to. And then whether it is a pass fail, and we'll get to why this is a fail in a minute, whether this is a pass-fail will get written to UFT, written to Excel by UFT because I will tell it to. And how do I tell it to do that? We'll go back over here. All right. And this was the tricky part, but once I picked all the information out of the video, it was just basically writing down what I saw Jay write and then plugging in my information for his. So now I have to tell it if actual 1, which is the name of this heading, equals expected 1, which is the name of that heading, then I need you to write the word pass to this column, I, because we're going to change it depending on what row we're on, P on the Excel sheet. P right here. So I said, if the numbers that are pulled by UFT here after it calculates equal the numbers that I stuck in here, then tell it pass. If they don't equal, then tell it fail and put it right here. It would be 2 comma P, 3 comma P, then 4 comma P, etc. But in order to tell it to do that automatically, we use I, which is our iteration variable, and then P, so it'll do it for every line. So it's a very simple if statement. If my actual, this information here that I grabbed, equals the expected, then write it to the Excel sheet, which you do by saying mysheet.cells, then your information here equals pass or equals fail, and if, else equals fail, and if. Very simple thing. And then I also did, I named mysheet.cells.io. I told it what that was, that is actual 1. And then I printed actual 1 and said this is the amount captured during runtime, and then I put it in an output right here. See, I only did it one time. And then I saved this using this and sent it in with my homework because he wanted us to do that. Then, so that is the thing that was causing me the most heartache, and it actually isn't horribly difficult, but you have to know what formula and what stuff to stick in there. And then the next thing we had to do was get our checkpoints, which are verification points, because technically we do not have checkpoints when using descriptive programming in Excel like that. And that was very straightforward. We did an exist, so you just capture this using object spy, and then you do if that thing that I just captured using object spy actually exists on the page, dot exist, then give me a message box that says we're on the right page, and if. He said we have to do at least 2 of those, so I did another one. I said if this thing that I just captured using object spy exists, then give me a message box that says we're still on the right page, and if. And the very final thing, and if you will notice, I did that outside of the loop because I only need that coming up one time. I don't want to have to be clicking OK, 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 OK after every iteration because that's boring.
Call from Hasna.
Okay, had paused it there for a second, got a phone call from one of my classmates. So what were we doing? I'm just saying the last thing that we're going to do is we want to save what we have done, and that's this is the structure, the syntax of how you do it, and then we want to quit the application, and then we want to free up the memory space that we were holding for Excel in the sheet in the browser. We're going to disconnect it and free up the memory space, and all you do is do set my Excel to nothing, set my sheet to nothing. You can also do it with your browser and set it to nothing, and that is it. It's not, you know, a whole lot longer than anything else. It's just a different procedure. Now, one thing I do want to show you, remember that Jay said he does not care if we get a pass or fail as long as we get data. And if you look here at my expected result versus my actual result, you will see that the numbers are exactly the same. When I ran this, I typed in this information here, and when UFT ran, it populated these cells here. And if you look at them, they're exactly the same, yet I got a fail on that. The only thing that I can figure out is somehow my formatting is off, because if you look at it in Object Spy, for instance, there's a space between the $sign and the 1503, and there's no space here, and when I set it up as currency, it didn't work. When I put a space, it didn't work. When I took out a space, it didn't work. So I figured it's some sort of a formatting issue, because obviously my numbers are precisely the same, and I'm not worried about the fail. Jay said he does not care whether it passes or fails as long as you get the data. And just so that they know that I know, I put a little note in here, commented out, saying I'm getting a fail on my Excel sheet. The numbers match up, but I think there's something different about the formatting. Big whoop. I'm not worried about it. So that is the Excel sheet. The challenge is you have to build on what you have learned before. And if you haven't really solidified what you've learned before, all the way back to drag and drop, you're going to have a challenge, right? So just keep on going, keep on plugging at it, and if you listen to the video again and again and again and again, you're going to grab the information that you need and then just write it down on a notepad or something and say, you know, this is how you do the get RO property, and this is how you do this. And at 5:59 on Wednesday's lecture, Jay said such and such, which is really important. Make notes for yourself so you know what you're going to do. I printed out all of his little note sheets that had these formulas on it for how to create a stuff and open a workbook, so that I had it in front of me, and I had that lecture going on in the background. So that's it. I have finished my homework. I'm not going to do a video on question 4, on section 4, because it's just question and answer. You're going to have to Google that. And then I am going to get away from the computer for a while, for a long while, and do something totally not associated with school. So you guys have a lovely day. I will be around the house until my bonfire at a friend's house this evening, so if you need anything, you can catch me on WhatsApp or email me. And I hope you have a lot of success with this. And be sure to close this, because otherwise it's going to mess you up. Alrighty? Y'all take care. Bye-bye.